Hi everyone. I'm just having a quick look through the many paintings that some of you have sent in. Great, really. I mean, I'm really pleased that you're sending them in, and I would like to encourage you to keep that going. I do enjoy looking at them, and there's some excellent results here. I'm looking at them on my laptop, and you know what it's like when you're looking at something on a computer screen. You're not sure if the colours are exactly the same as the photograph or the contrast in it, so you'll have to bear with me on that. I can only go by what I've got on screen here. And it's nice that it's becoming like a community. I'm interested to read the comments that other members have said about members' pictures, and it's nice to see how people are encouraging each other. We've got a lovely one here of Kilkern Castle on Loch by Pete Batho. So thanks for sending this in, Pete. I sat looking at this and I thought, well, this might not be a good one for me to start with, because I can't find much wrong with it. There's very little wrong with it. But I wouldn't be earning my keep if I wasn't doing a little bit of criticism. So I do think some of your darks, like at the top of the hill there and in the trees here, are a little bit grey. They're a little bit heavy, a little bit strong, but they're also a little bit grey, almost like a black. And I think what you've done there, you've mixed the dark brown, as I think it was burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, and you've probably leaned a little bit too much towards the ultramarine blue. You can have that fairly dark, but it should still have that bit of warmth in it, that bit of red coming through from the burnt sienna. So if you overdo the ultramarine blue, it looks more black or like a gunmetal grey, which isn't as pleasing a colour as that warmer dark brown. I love the way you've got the little dry stone walls across this meadow or field area down there. I think that works very well. The colour on your castle walls, it's probably quite accurate. Mine is probably less accurate because I've warmed it slightly, although I do prefer that. I deliberately made it a warmer tone, and you've probably got that a little bit coal, a little bit grey. The warmer tone is nice on the castle walls, and I think I've touched a bit of raw sienna in to warm it slightly. And that's nice because we've got this cool grey in the sky, we've got the cold grey shadows and the white snow on the hills, and it's nice contrast to have a bit of warmth, a bit of sunlight on the castle wall to contrast with all those cold colours around it. Another little thing, and these are small things really, but that little line there to suggest a dry stone wall or a hedgerow or something is a bit too straight. You could almost have done it with a ruler. Any lines that represent hedgerows or walls or something across the landscape should actually reflect the contour, and there's a slight contour of slope in that hill that you could have emphasised by putting a slight angle in that. I'm splitting hairs to some extent because I'm looking for things to criticise, but that's how you improve anyway, so that's no bad thing. But in general, I do think that is a good effort. That's very good around there, because that's tricky to get that. If you've tried this, you may have seen how it's quite tricky to get that lost and found effect of the top of the hill there with the low cloud, and Pete's got that beautifully in there. So well done. So this one's this one of the Elter Water Bridge in the Autumn project has been sent by Julie Horner. Another very good attempt at what I think is one of the most difficult ones, because you have all these masses of autumn foliage where you can just get a glimpse of the hill and the buildings through it, and that's quite difficult to get the balance right on that. Very good, but I have got to look for some errors, something that could be improved. I think, and I'm not sure the reason for this, because the perpendiculars are out and the bridge is at too much of an angle. That could be the photography, I can't tell. It could be that it just needs straightening. But if you look at that, if you look at the project on the website, that line following the bridge there does slope slightly down to the right, but not as steeply as that. And the buildings, the perpendiculars are out. The buildings are slightly like that, almost as if they could slide along out of the picture. it could be that if Julie moves it like that, or puts a mount on it and alters the angle of the mount, as she brings the buildings more perpendicular, it would straighten up the bridge as well. So it may be that we can solve that. The roof of this little building here, that angle at the top is quite wrong. It's worth having another look at the drawing on that, because it's almost like you're looking down on that building when you're not. You're looking straight across at it, almost slightly up at it, but that angle, you'd only get that angle at the top of the roof if you were looking down on it, so that's slightly out. The other things are little technique things. She's done a nice job of these trees here, particularly this one at this side here. That's better than these two foreground ones, where the branches are nice and fine and delicate. That's quite tricky to get right, but Julie's got that. She's done well with that. But look at that branch there. It's curved like that. It's almost like somebody's bending it over. It would be better if after a short curve it went the other way like that and had a few more twists and bends in it. It's just too smooth a curve altogether, and that's happening with one or two branches and the trunk at this side as well. This ivy-clad tree here is a little bit lumpy. The dry brushwork isn't quite delicate enough. Now I know the reason for this actually, but it'll still make a good point. It's still interesting, because Julie did say on the forum that she'd used a very smooth paper, a hot pressed paper, and I wouldn't have been able to get that dry brushwork any more delicate, any finer on a hot pressed paper, because it's just not possible. It's so difficult. You do need the texture that comes with the knot paper or the rough. Maybe a brush could have been a bit drier as well, which helps to get that broken texture. But really, I think that's about the paper. And you can spend a lot of time on a painting and fail in an important area because you've chosen the wrong paper. So you can't go far wrong with those that I use, which is the Saunders Waterford rough or the Arsh knot or rough. And they do give you some a nice texture to work to. The arch of the bridge, as I remember it, it's not quite such a perfect semicircle. It's more of an ellipse, really, the shape of the bridge. And little things like that are quite important. The actual shape of a tree, there's quite a bit of leeway in that. It's quite flexible. But a man-made object like a bridge, you've got to get that. You've got to get that just right. Julie did say that she hadn't downloaded the trace and she'd drawn it freehand because she didn't want to, because it comes in a pack with 5 different images and she didn't have to print out all 5. I do understand that. I'm no expert with computers, far from it, but I did have a look on mine, and when you send that to print, you should get an option on your printer to print all 5 pages or page number 2 or number 3 out of it. You only have to print, if you want to keep the image on screen and not print it out, you only have to print the page with the tracing on. You don't have to print the whole lot. I hope I'm right in saying that, because I'm far from an expert on computers and things digital. But overall, I found a few criticisms there, but again, a very good painting of what is quite a difficult subject. So we've got another good painting here of the Porlock Weir scene by Roger Callow. Thanks for sending this, Roger. It's very good. It's come out very well. I've been looking for some criticism, looking for 1 or 2 faults rather. One thing, and this is quite basic, but you do have to be careful of it, are perpendiculars. Now this big shed here and this little row of cottages, they're leaning like that. The perpendicular's not quite right. When you get it like that, it's almost as if those cottages could slip down the bank here into the water. So that's not quite right. It may be, I mean, looking at the harbour wall there, that's sloping slightly, so it may be a camera angle thing, but I suspect not. I think if you straighten up the harbour wall slightly to get it more level, the buildings will still be leaning over. So it's the sort of thing that you need to check at the drawing stage before you paint. And I know that because I get it wrong myself. I tend to lean towards the right like that. And so I got, because I noticed this was happening with my paintings years ago, I got into the habit of checking my perpendiculars at the drawing stage, where it's much easier to put them right. Well, it's virtually impossible now. It gets very difficult to change them once you've got all this paint on. You might get away with it just by straining it that way slightly. Okay, a couple of other things. The shape of that boat, it's maybe a little bit slight bathtub shape, a little bit wide in the middle, and it doesn't look quite like it's sat in the grass. It looks like it's sort of sat on top of the grass. Whereas it's nice to get that effect of the grass and stuff growing around it, like it's sunk in a little bit. Small point really, that. The two bushes here, whilst you've done dry brush work, which has worked very well for the edges of it, the dry brush work, they do tend to be both the same ball shape at the side of each other. It'd be better if the shape varied slightly and you maybe got out of that curved shape by making a bit of variation in the dry brushwork at the top. Nice dry brushwork along this bank and in the foreground there. I think we could do with a little bit of slightly darker brown on the harbour wall to give us because that's a very similar tone to the greens around here, whereas actually it's quite a lot darker than that. So if you've gone a little bit darker there, that worked well. One of the most difficult colours to mix whenever we're painting in watercolour, I think, is the dark green. That mixture of viridian, ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Roger's got that just right. It's a nice colour that I've seen so many vivid turquoises that don't look right, but that does look right. Maybe the shadow from this boat here is a little grey. It can be a little warmer than that, a bit more blue in it. Very small things now, but often it's a little thing in a picture that can make quite a difference. If you look at if we were doing this in a class situation, I was actually there looking over your shoulder, I'd have said the seat in that boat is level with the top of the hull, and if you were to sit on that and try and row, you'd probably fall off in the water. And it just needed a bit of the inside painting further down into it, so it looks like that seat is sat down inside the hull. And also, a seat in a boat like that has got to be totally parallel with the line of the stern. Otherwise you would keep rowing around in a circle, you know what I mean? So small things, but well worth pointing out, because they're little things that are quite easy to put right, and it really steps your painting up a grade if you do that. So thanks for sending that in, Roger. I know I've been a bit critical there, because I am looking for things that, when other people are watching this, can turn into a lesson. The beauty of this, of course, is that other people may well have made very similar mistakes. However, it is a good painting. You've done a very good job of that, and should be very pleased with it. As I say, I'm just looking for little points that might help everyone, but a very good effort. Just scrolling through the comments as well on the members page. We've got a comment here from Annie, who says that she's saying she's a bit too nervous to put her paintings on because some of the ones that people are posting look so good. And then Julie's come back, and I really agree with this, and said, don't be put off, please post them, it's the best way to learn. And Julie's also pointed out that some of the people on here, there's no way they're new to watercolour, they've been painting for some years. You've only been painting for about 6 months, I see, Annie, so that's not long really. And some of them have actually been to my classes as well that I've done over the years, painting holidays, etc. And some people who've been to them have a little bit of a head start because they've heard me introduce the same sort of techniques before. So whilst it's great to see the good paintings, and I love to see how people are progressing, it's important to see the journey of the people who are starting out from a lower level and a bit less confident. This isn't about looking good. When you put these online, it's about us sharing it and looking for somebody who improves as the months go by. So it applies to everyone who's a bit nervous to post your paintings. Don't be, and I'll be constructive with my criticism, but I won't be unkind, because I know what it's like when you're learning something new. Now, obviously, I won't be doing a video critique for every painting that comes in. I'll do these every so often and pick a few examples, but I will be trying to respond to every posting of a painting and give some sort of help and criticism. Won't be instant. I might do this once a week or something like that, but I will try to keep on top of that. So do send them in. I really look forward to seeing some more paintings. And like Julie says, it's nice the way we can all, I want to create a community where we can all sort of encourage each other and comment on other people's paintings. You may be pointing out a weak spot in it or saying how impressed you are with it. But it's nice to have that encouragement of our peers, so really do keep them coming.